welcome to Magus of the League 2.0.
2.0.
2.0.
The upgrade.
Yeah, so I'm Lee Bond, and this is Chris York, my co-host.
Greetings.
The mutagenic ooze to my vanifair, if you will.
And that makes you the prime speaker.
The prime speaker.
I like that.
Yeah. And this is a video podcast where we talk about Magic League as a format.
Mm-hmm. Also applicable, all these lessons that we're going to talk about are also applicable to Sealed. So stick around. If you're not, League literate, you're most definitely Sealed literate.
Yeah. So, League being a 60-card format.
Indeed.
That is where you open 6 packs. Every time you lose, you add a pack to your pool. And you continue until you're eliminated at 11 losses, or until you reach the glorious ranks of the Mega Draft.
Yes. And Mega Draft, we should explain very quickly, it's where you draft one pack from every standard legal set in chronologically released order, and make a 60-card deck out of that and go for 3 Swiss rounds, which is a different kind of skills to test at the end of the tournament.
Yes, correct. So, we're actually doing a complete overhaul for those who are our current fan base. Yes. We're going to try and up our game a little, but we're going to keep some format the same, and we're going to start off with our regular League news.
Sure.
So, Chris, some huge updates. It's officially the death and rebirth of League. WotC has officially declared they no longer support League as a format.
Correct.
So what does this mean to you?
First of all, it means to most League players no more promo cards.
Yeah.
And really that's the only difference.
Yeah.
I never really got on board with League as WotC recommended it.
Yeah.
They were always about the 30-card format, which really just means that if you have a bomb, you're twice as likely to draw it as in a 60-card format, and it's going to come down to who's got the best bombs. I don't think it was that good in terms of balance in that, if you had a mill strategy, obviously it's way more effective in a 30-card format than a 60-card format. And really, what makes League fun for me is the fact that you have to use janky cards, you have to use weak cards to fill in your deck.
Yeah.
And you have to, how can I say it? You have to design in order to, say, use things like tutors or... Yeah, it's more of a survivalist game.
Yeah.
Right, it's more like fighting in the jungle as opposed to just like, just ram these 2 packs together. I'll get my bomb almost every game.
Yeah. I gotta say, so, the format that we play was 60 cards.
Yeah.
It feels much more like Magic as Magic is meant to be played. Most formats are 60 cards. The original format was 60 cards. So this is Magic, as close as it is to a standard without being standard. It's playing with people who have similar power levels of deck and, playing Magic the way you would if you were just picking up packs and building a deck from them, right? So this is really like our format of League, which has not died.
Yeah.
We are now La Résistance, the rebellion.
Well, it's more like we have an opportunity here. In Wizards' absence of leadership or poor management of the format, we've positioned ourselves to be the authority as to what League is and should be. So, in a way, it's not bad news at all that Wizards is stepping out of the game.
And that doesn't just go for us at Magus, it goes for all current League players.
Right.
So
keep up the resistance in your own local game shop.
Exactly. So,
we are the voice of the underground, but we're by no way the definitive, authoritative voice.
No, except for you.
Except check our website for latest rules and feel free to use them in your own LGSs.
Yeah, and you can always hit us up on social media if you have any questions about the format. We're happy to answer them.
Exactly.
So that being said, League is not dead.
No.
Stick it to WotC.
Yeah. Show them that you care about community-run formats, and show them that you're not just a corporate drone who abandons a format whenever some stuffed suit says it's over.
Yeah. Wow, this relaunch really took the shackles off.
It really did.
Yeah.
I'm not going to start playing Brawl because some guy says, now it's time to play Brawl.
No. League for life.
And I'm not going to stop playing League because some stuffed shirt says it's time to stop playing League.
Okay.
You're your own person.
That being said, quick update on our League.
Yes.
How are you doing right now?
Oh, wow. This is a tough spot for me because in the last 2 weeks, I've gone 0-3 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
I started out in the top 8 in week 1 and week 2. and now I've tanked.
Oh yeah.
Completely like the ship is sinking.
Oh yeah.
Taking on water.
03.
Morale is low.
Yeah. See, I went the opposite direction, starting out at a rough 2-4 and just fighting my way back 2-1 at a time, 2-1 at a time.
It's a better story.
Currently at 8-7, but
everyone loves an underdog.
Everybody loves an
No
underdog.
one loves an overdog.
Nobody loves an overdog.
The overdog goes down.
Is an overdog such a thing?
Let's make it a thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Underdog goes up.
Yeah. So, that being said, as you can see in the visual, you're even rebuilding. You might be rebuilding while we're talking today.
Before the podcast, yeah, I was just kind of like looking in despair at my pool.
Yeah.
It's pulling in so many different directions.
WotC not supporting in the format anymore, us still playing it, keeping alive. Let's talk about people who, might be tuning into this relaunch for the first time and are interested in playing the format. We have a how-to video that will either be launched before or after this podcast, probably before.
Probably.
So it'll be just before this podcast.
Yeah.
Which will explain how to play the league from a player's perspective.
Right.
Now, since we don't
link
have...
to it in the links.
We'll put it in the links.
Yeah, sure.
So now that WotC doesn't have our support, how should someone go about... Like, if you want to start your own resistance, start your own league, one of the big parts of this and the way we manage it is committees, right? And I knew that we wanted to do a kind of a talk about the necessities of committees for someone who wants to start their own league,
Sure.
And the thing is like one person can represent all of these committees for someone. So someone in a small enough league, it's like you can manage all of these. So the example that I was making for you earlier was a school teacher with an after school kids group could manage and run the own league and play essentially all 3 or 4 of these roles.
Sure.
But
I did it myself for years.
Exactly.
And it was fine.
Yeah.
A bit daunting at times, but it's a manageable amount of work for one person. But if you've got the player base and you can help it at all, it's going to be much, much better if you can delegate some of the authority, get other people invested in the format as much as you are, and take it easy on yourself. Yeah,
it's better to share the load, because it keeps a player base invested in it, and it also it lightens the workload.
And it lets new ideas in.
Yeah,
if you're one person, you can't have all the ideas, you can't have all the perspectives, but
Okay, so committees. What are the committees that we need to do?
Okay, right now we have 3 committees. We're part of the promo committee. This is promoting the format. And that committee is essentially in charge of advertising each of the leagues as they come out. Now, typically, with every new set that's released, we have a new league, but that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes you can have a special league like the Chaos League we came out with, where it's 1 pack of 6 packs of random sets.
So we have a cat jumping around.
That's part of the reboot.
Yeah,
that's
part of the reboot.
Part of the reboot is working with live animals.
Yeah.
So, what was I saying about? Oh, yeah. So promo committee. We're basically Julian, for example, he makes posters. Dave, he's going to be editing the video.
Yeah.
We're doing the podcast. Yeah. So it's just getting the word out.
Yeah.
That's what they do. So next committee.
Yeah. The important part of that is the recruitment, right? Like this format is new, it's fresh.
Yeah.
You gotta, if you're gonna start this in your local game store, you really gotta kind of get out there. And one of the best, before you start with like the posters and the podcast and all that, one of the best ways to do it is just to recruit like a list of 12 people who want to play. Propose the format, explain it to them, and be like, hey, go to the store. This is what I want to do. I have 12 players ready to go. It's hard for a store to say no. I don't want to let you play a format when you're ready to go.
Well, I mean, Lee actually is kind of a good example of this. He's a good proselytizer. He went to the pre-release, I forget which pre-release it was, and basically every time you sat across an opponent, you're like, hey, we've got a league coming up. Do you want to join?
Yeah.
And a lot of people report to me that, I was like, oh, I haven't seen you play before. How'd you get in? Oh, well, this guy at the pre-release suggested that I join. I was like, why not?
Yeah.
So word of mouth is always your best form of advertising.
Okay.
Moving on from promo.
Yeah.
We have the Rules Committee. Rules Committee is probably the most central entity because the Rules Committee is going to be in charge of the tournament, organizing the tournament, making the liaison link with the store. If you do it through a store and you want to get prize support, you're also going to be looking at any kinds of, heaven forbid, if there's any kind of rules infringement, you have to decide how severe it is, what kind of penalty to enforce, and so on and so forth. So really it's designing the next tournament and maintaining tournament integrity for the existing.
This is your organizational team and your judges, basically.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah, they're the cutters. If there's a problem, they cut.
Exactly, and they're responsible for, in my mind, one of their responsibilities is to design tournaments that don't overlap that much, but are more or less continuous throughout the year. So when you want to play League, you have an opportunity.
Yeah, as long as there are players who want to play, there should be people who are willing to do.
Exactly.
Okay, and there's more committees.
Yes, there's one more committee, and that's Records. So Records Committee is in charge of taking all the slips that are generated through all the matches. Like Lee said, when you lose a match, you add a pack. And the way to make sure that those packs aren't completely stacked with bombs is to have a witness. The witness is the winner of the match who writes it all down. And the person who collates all of that is part of the Records Committee.
Yeah. And this can be as easy as a simple series of envelope with each player's names on it, and just put the slip in there.
Yep.
And then someone tracks that. Our Records Committee, which we should take a second to thank, does a much more in-depth job of doing that. Sorry.
Freudian slip.
Yep. In-depth job of doing that, where they like record all the cards. You know, we have access to them if we have questions, all that. They're excellent at what they do, but you know, this is it shouldn't be too daunting of a task for anybody. You know, there are ways of keeping a basic record. You know, where you can just keep people's slips in an envelope with their name on it, and then you would know if someone has a problem with their pool.
Yeah.
So, and that pretty much covers. So in tie with our how-to video, that'll pretty much cover what you guys need to start your own rebellion. You know, to stick it to WotC.
Yeah. You need someone also who's good at Excel and records, right? Because you want to keep track of the standings.
Yeah, exactly. Standings is a huge part of it, right? Yeah. It's relevant to when you get eliminated, who you're going to play. A lot of the strategy from it derives it. So
it gives the tournament shape as the weeks go by.
Yeah.
You see how you're rising and falling in the standings. It gives you some feedback.
Yeah.
In real time.
So that covers kind of our intro.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I wanted to do with this overhaul, with us going completely off the rails, is start a new kind of segment that I'm calling Archetype of the Week. So the first part of this segment is what we're going to do is we're going to talk about an archetype. Specific to, we want to bring it to a weekly level, but specific to this format, our format.
Ravnica Allegiance?
So a Ravnica Allegiance League, right? Which means that you started with a 6-card pool from Ravnica Allegiance, and you have access to every pack in Standard. So Rix, or Rivals of Ixalan, Ixalan, Dominaria, Core, Guilds of Ravnica, and Ravnica Allegiance, and kind of talk about what an archetype, what a deck in that archetype would look like, right? So one of the ones that's kind of really popular that we're going to lean into and that I've seen a little bit of so far is Ramp or Big Boys, right? There was a lot of support for green in Ravnica Allegiance, so a lot of people opened up Simic or Gruul pools, a little bit of both, you know, some overlap, some splash from other colors.
Yeah. Not coincidentally, perhaps your favorite color combination is Teamer.
Correct, but it's not the color combination I'm playing. The curse of my existence, you know, like for those who watched my live opening pool, despite the sound quality of an interview of our last episode, you'll see that I kind of leaned into the Teamer. I highly diverged from that later on, but you know, it is my favorite color combination. You know, playing big creatures, drawing and burning is what I like to do.
So what do you want to say about this archetype?
Okay, so let's talk about the first part is key cards. So what are we looking for? In Ravnica Allegiance, there's only 2 major ramp cards that I know of. The first of is Gaith Growth Spiral.
Oh yeah.
Although there's technically, I guess it's not really a ramp card, Fixing, Open the Gates.
Okay, yeah, Fixing.
And then Circuitous Route, which is also a ramp card. We can say hello to my cat. This is Jack Daniels right here. So yeah, Circuitous Route, 3 colors, 1 green, get 2 gates or basic lands, put them into the battlefield top.
Yeah.
So those are the ramp cards that people are kind of looking for to start. There's also a few dorks that were in this format. We had the Incubation Druid as a bomb.
Yeah.
That was pretty heavy.
That's solid, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm failing to figure out any other ones, but I think that kind of covers like your basic key cards that you're looking for to ramp.
Yeah.
And also let's not forget the most broken enchantment in the set. That it caused a ban on MTG Arena, Wilderness Reclamation.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
does that count as ramp? I suppose it does.
I do think so, because I think one of the other key things that you're going to look for in this archetype is so if you're running down the Simic path, one of your big ramp payoffs is going to be adapt.
Yeah.
Right. Dropping a Soroform 2/2 that adapts for 6. The faster you can get to that 6 mana and adapt it into a 6/6, is where you really want to be.
True.
And Reclamation kind of gets you there faster because it allows you to play creatures and immediately adapt after. And it does allow you to play multiple cards on a turn if you're playing a big creature and keep up your removal or keep up your instants and stuff like that. So I think it's not necessarily a key piece, but I think it's one of the key players in that deck from this archetype, right?
And do you think this archetype has the edge over the others?
I don't think so. I don't think it's my favorite archetype right now.
It's just an archetype.
Yeah. So the thing was, I think there's different archetypes that have different strengths at different points of the league. I think this is the archetype that's going to be the strongest right now at the stage that we're in our league. So we're in a mid-range of our league. I think ramping into big bombs when removal is still kind of scarce, it's not getting there.
Right.
You're going to punish a lot of people. And if you're playing stuff that might not be easy to answer, like enchantments or artifacts and stuff like that, Gate Colossus, is a really nice piece of that ramp deck.
Yeah. It's a big bomb.
Yeah, and it also, all the guild gates are playable into that. Because the ramp deck in this format is going to kind of look like a hybrid between the guild gate deck and also just like a regular ramp deck with some big aggro. Key pieces that you can look in for in other cards, like going to Dominaria. It's the, what's the kicker?
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about, the green kicker spell.
Yeah.
That gets you 1 land if it's not kicked, 2 if it is.
Yeah, exactly. That one.
That's enough.
Yeah, Llanowar Elves. I know someone that I played this week actually has 2 of them and has been going hard into Dominaria just for that.
Wow.
And ramping into Gruul so that they can turn 1 Llanowar Elf, turn 2 into their Gruul Spellbreaker.
That is a good strategy.
It's a good strategy. So this is those key cards is what you're looking for as ramp is like early green. I think green is going to be your primary color. Leaning into those heavier payoffs, looking for like a 4, 5, 6 drop that you can put on to or turn or 2 early. I don't think it's necessarily about putting a big guy on the board, although those can be interesting. I think it's more about getting that earlier turn 4, earlier turn 5, right? That's what Ram really wants to do. Any other key cards that you can think of? Dinosaurs,
Oh, I like dinosaurs. I like going back to Ixalan. I like my raging Regisaurs.
Yeah.
I like all those guys. I like the what's it called, the Frillback. Yes, I've got it right here actually. Hold on a sec here. I'll show you what I like. I like the Frilled Death Spitter.
That's not a ramp card.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It protects you while you're ramping. I mean, let's not forget, like a ramp deck isn't just mana dorks and big bombs, right? You still have got to play some meat in the middle.
Yeah.
And Enrage has proven itself to be great for enabling spectacle.
It's true.
Right.
But
and that's key in that. Like if you're opening up packs of Ravnica Allegiance, chances are in your red somewhere you've got to skewer the critics or 3.
Yeah.
And you've got to find some way to activate that. And if it's blocked or if it's not, then the Frilled Death Spitter is going to get you there.
Yeah. But I think your Meat and Bones is going to be a little bit higher up on the curve than that one.
Of course. But I'm saying like it's there. Even in a ramp deck, you got to have some middle of the road cards.
Fair enough.
In League, you got to use the cards you get.
Yeah.
You're not going to have the equipment you need just to have mana dorks and just to have top end predators.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going to have some filler cards.
Yeah.
That's a great filler card.
That's an interesting perspective. It's true. In League, you're not consistently going to hit the ramp that you would in Standard. So while that can be your primary game plan, you still need some meat and potatoes to fill out when you don't hit that ramp every turn.
And that's why I think it's not until about week 6 of any given league that you see really concentrated and effective aggro decks and really concentrated and effective control decks. Because until that point, you just don't have the critical mass of cards to construct those kinds of archetypes.
Yeah.
So in a way, everybody's going mid-range until they hit about 6, 7, 8, 9 packs that are opened, and then they can start to say, okay, now I actually have enough cards opened that I can attempt a coherent approach towards aggro or control.
Yeah. That being said, what are some of the sideboard cards that you're going to be looking for in this archetype, right? So, if you're matching up against control or aggro, a frilled whatever their spitter, frilled Death Spitter might be a nice sideboard card if you're not main decking him against an aggro build, because lowering your curve can help you out against that.
Sure.
Or one of the things that we keep saying, currently I'm main decking 3 enchantment removals.
Yeah.
Main deck.
Yeah, it's so crucial because in Ravnica Allegiance you have a lot of killer enchantments.
Yeah.
So some of the killer enchantments, what do you got? You got the Prying Eyes, I think it is, or Eyes Everywhere, which is actually it's killed me in certain games.
I think that card is.
I think it's underrated.
I think it's overrated because I'll tell you what. I tell you what breaks that card.
What?
The Guild Gate. That's any color. Gateway Plaza. Because you play that, and I have a Gateway Plaza, and then we're just swapping back and forth for no reason.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Like you want to play it. I would play that as a sideboard card.
Okay.
Not actually in this deck, in a ramp deck. Because what you want to do is get up to a high level and keep scrying. It's a good card early to scry to get you there, but it's only sideboardable against someone who's not playing any blue, right? Anybody who's got that no blue, it's just a huge punish because it actually gives you endgame value. You swap for their bomb. You know,
Sure.
It's a 2-for-1.
There are exceptions. All I'm talking about is some of the stuff that you might want to get rid of.
Yeah.
Like Ill-Gotten Inheritance.
Yeah.
Like the Gruul one that gives everything haste. Help me out here.
Rhythm of the Wild.
Rhythm of the Wild.
Rhythm of the Wild. Yeah.
These are things lying around the board that justify your sideboarding or your in this case mainboarding of enchantment hate.
Yeah. So I actually have more in my sideboard.
Okay.
More.
Well, you see, like auras are not necessarily a big threat, but there are a lot of global enchantments.
No, that's for
that
sure.
sit around and cause heartache.
Yeah, and in a ramp deck, you might consider sideboarding out your removal. You know, your high cost removal, putting in some big threat creatures. If it comes down to that, you have an equivalent matchup. You know, siding in that removal and then ramping into it. It's not a bad idea. You know, Get to the Point or the Consign to the Pits are very high cost.
They are
Premium removal.
Yep.
And siding those in against someone that you see is a bit slower, especially if you're in a ramp Jund deck, or if you're in a, you know, like this splashing for your black or whatever, that can really pay off.
Oh yeah.
So those cards might not be main deckable depending on your curve, whereas if you're playing ramp and you're trying to get to that high cost later in the game, I could see those being a pretty good sideboard option for this kind of archetype.
For Sheezy.
Yeah. Splashing. So we've already said green, red.
We may have different ideas.
Green, blue. Really?
Well, you go ahead first.
Okay, so my idea is pretty simple.
Yeah.
Is you always want to prioritize your bombs in a limited format, right?
Sure.
So if I can pull off a splash, I'm going to force as many of those bombs as I can. I think we've talked about this in the past on the podcast. It's floor versus ceiling, right?
Yeah. But if I can out you,
Yes.
you're playing an Orzhov deck, splashing for Biogenic Ooze.
Yeah. I mean,
Right. So, you know, and yes, that's a good card.
Yes.
But you know, you it raises eyebrows.
Yes.
It's questionable.
Yes.
And you yourself said if you could get an in-color rare of equal or greater value, you would drop green completely.
Yes.
Right?
However, I don't have one of those, and it's floor versus ceiling.
Okay.
The thing is the floor on that card is I have a card that I can't play, which happens quite often in every single deck, that you have a dead card,
Sure.
right? The ceiling is I manage to play it. Not only that, I can keep making oozes. And the idea is that it's just a 3/3 that gets bigger immediately and just gets infinite value. And mana sinks in limited...
It's 2 3/3s.
Yeah, or 3 3/3s or 4/4. Like, it depends on how much mana you have, right?
And if you draw that third green
That's
splash.
correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
But in a game that's going to go long,
Yeah.
you know, it's a sink. And sinks have value.
Sure.
So floor versus ceiling, you know, at the end of the day, it's like if I don't hit that green, I can still play most of my deck. If I do hit that green, I can still play most of my deck. And if I get 2 green sources, not to mention most of my green sources are multicolored sources like Guild Gates, Gateway Plaza.
This is international sign language for 2 green sources.
This is my international sign language, floor versus ceiling.
Oh, okay.
Floor versus ceiling. You know?
That was a tree in the field.
You know, LSV has its quadrant theory.
Yeah.
I have floor versus ceiling.
Okay.
You know, the floor of a card, if it's not hurting you, you know, if it's just a dead card, that's a pretty low floor, or a pretty high floor. But blowing out the game on its own and not making you spend any cards to make creatures, it's a pretty high ceiling. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm forcing that card still. However, you know, there's something to be said that if I had an optimized deck, consistency is another thing. It's just I'm taking away that floor for an equivalent ceiling.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, to be fair, I've prioritized consistency, and I succeeded because I've been doing consistently badly for the last 2 weeks. So that's some kind of consistency.
Yeah.
So, look, I mean, in your opinion, Lee,
Yeah.
is it always right in this format at this time to be a wedge or a shard? In other words, to be a 3-colored deck.
No. It all depends on your deck.
Okay.
It depends on your pool. It always. This is the thing. It always depends on your pool.
So
this is
we
why
we can only give guidelines.
Yeah.
We can't give rules.
This is why I wanted to bring it back to the archetype, because the thing is like,
Yeah.
if you're in this archetype of splashing, if you're not hitting enough high bombs that you have a payoff for your ramp,
Yeah.
this is a good reason to splash in this archetype. If you can ramp up, not to mention if you're searching with Circuitous Road, Open the Gates, all that type of stuff, if you can ramp up and fix yourself at the same time, then why not play that extra bombs? And this is one of the things that a lot of people don't consider when they're thinking about splashes. The higher up the curve your splash is, the easier it will be for you to attain, right? If your splash is on the low end, you know, when we think about, like we mentioned, LSV quadrant theory, splashing for a 1-drop or a 2-drop, you're going to be like, usually in the late game, it's not going to be that great.
Yeah.
If you don't hit that mana early, it's useless.
Yeah.
You know, it's not really worth it. Splashing for a 6-drop or a 5-drop,
Sure.
much more attainable, especially in this ramp archetype. You know,
Sure.
in a big boys archetype, a Circuitous Route or the kicker one from Dominaria there,
It gets you there.
it'll get you there real quick.
Sure.
So, especially if you're playing basics, you know, in that color, which we all are if we're splashing, because we probably don't have enough guild gate support yet to support all of our splash.
Fair.
So, that is kind of where I am with splashing.
Mhm.
How do you feel about splashing?
I'm a splash adjacent.
Yeah.
I'm not splashing yet myself. I still have a 2-color deck, and I've been punished for it. But now I'm warming up to the idea.
Yeah.
I'm warming up to the idea.
Okay. So, final point,
Yeah.
kind of this new thing that we're doing with the archetype.
Yep.
The ramp guys, the big guys, the Simic, the Teamer, the Gruuls that we've seen, and
Yep.
even probably the Juns. You know, anything playing green as a primary color.
Sure.
Tricks and tips. Anything that you've seen that's real spicy?
What have I gotten blown out by recently? Tips and tricks. I'm not sure I have a tips and tricks for
I've
this.
got 2.
Let's hear yours.
Here's my first one. Mammoth Spider. That's a bomb. That card lines up with everything. It eats Orzhov alive, right? If you have Mammoth Spiders, up till recently, I was splashing more green cards, and one of my first picks as a green card on a splash was Mammoth Spider, because it brick walls so much. And it's been in the last couple of formats basically like an adaptation of Giant Spider, and in my opinion, it's one of the funnest limited cards ever printed. Like it's such a great answer to flying. It's such a big body.
But so that's the question. Are you? But it's a defensive card.
Yes, it's very defensive.
Inherently. So in your big boys deck, where you're ramping out into these huge, game-dominating, life-ruining threats, are you going to take a turn off to play a Mammoth Spider?
If I'm playing it on turn 3 or turn 4, probably, because I'll be able to get in for a few swings before it then switches to a defensive role. Because it's still a big butt, right?
Sure.
It's a big butt.
It's a big butt.
And if you're playing in the Simic Splash Bang, you know, High Alert makes it into a 5/5.
Now we're getting into Magical Christmas Land.
That Magical Christmas Land, yeah.
Okay.
So, second tip.
Yeah.
For the ramp payoffs, we talked about Ixalan.
Yes.
There's a lot in Ixalan.
Turns out.
Yeah,
But
turns
not
out.
in Ixalan proper. Rivals, I think.
Ixalan proper, too.
Really? I've always been disappointed.
Snapping Sailback, which was also one of my huge smashes right now.
Okay.
You know, that's a fun-ass card. Sorry, pardon my language.
That's
but
fine. I don't think you're offending anybody.
You can ramp into it,
Yeah.
and if you drop it on a turn 3 or 4, it's almost always going to eat the creature it's coming out against.
True.
And it's a big old body. You know, I love that card. Colossal Dreadmaw is in both sets. You know, that's a ramp payoff if I ever saw one. 6/6 trample for 6.
It's true. It's there. Consistently.
Yeah, there's a couple other ones. It's true that Rivals, the reason Rix is more appealing is because Rix has the legendary dinos, right? You're targeting the rare. But
Yeah.
I think they both have an equal payoff in terms of the kind of the value from like the generics, the commons and uncommons.
I just feel like everything's more concentrated in Rivals of Ixalan.
I think the dinos from Ixalan were better, though. Because they had better... All the enraged triggers
Yeah, I
were
guess.
all on the Ixalan side. The original enraged triggers were all on the Ixalan side.
Yeah, true.
The payoffs for like the ones that pinged and stuff like that were all on the Rivals. So I think Ixalan would be a better bet. Dominaria also has a lot of nice ramp cards. Some decent payoffs on the kicker side. You know, kicker is a huge payoff for ramp.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
Fight with Fire,
Yeah, the Bailoff Gorger.
Yeah.
You know, Gruul, the Lonely King. Groon. That I've seen that card, and it's a beast. Especially with Simic, if you have the ability to put the upgrade of +1/+1 on counters, yeah, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Fair enough.
It's pretty annoying, but and in Gruul it pays off too because you can kick it, and then there's the 4-cost, the 4-drop that taps and removes counters to ping.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you know, those are payoffs that work well together in kicker because all the kicker growth for ramp, like the Bailoff Gorger, are all +1/+1 counters.
That's right. So there's some
there are some
cross-set synergies.
Yeah, that people probably won't see coming.
Fair enough.
So those are my tips and tricks.
Awesome.
So we're going to also introduce a new kind of segment along with this archetype of the week.
Here we go.
Where we're calling the Planeswalker Challenge.
Yeah.
And we're going to do this for you guys. We're basically going to open a pack and we're going to do a kind of a pick the playables that I'm calling it.
Yep.
Where you and I are going to pick out the playables from the archetype that we're discussing this week. So ramp / big boys. And we're going to see like what we would add, you know, viewing from that. So we're going to check that out, and then we'll be right back with you guys for our closing word.
Excellent.
We have 3 packs here for you today. So we're going to rip 2 of these.
Yep.
So based on our current discussions that we were talking about right before we got into this.
Yep. We got a debate about which is more powerful.
Yeah.
Old school Ixalan or
Rivals of Ixalan.
Rivals of Ixalan.
So I'm going to give you the first crack of these. So I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think you should open the old school Ixalan first, and then we'll get into the.
So we're just going to toss Ravnica Allegiance right out.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows what they need.
Everybody knows.
This is going to be Ixalan versus Rivals of Ixalan. So the idea of what we're doing is we're picking the playables.
The playables with reference to Ravnica Allegiance League.
Yeah, and a Gruul, not a Gruul necessarily, but a ramp archetype.
We're assuming you have about 2 of each common.
Yeah.
In Ravnica by now.
Or a primary green color. So my token is a Puzzle Quest token. Oh no, it's a pirate.
There you go.
So looking at this land, actually, if you were being open your sealed pool, not your sealed pool, your pack to your opponent, you would go uncommons first into uncommons. Ooh, there's some good cards here.
Are there?
Oh yeah, this is a payoff and a half.
All right, let's see. What do you like?
Okay, so if it was for me and I was playing in a ramp deck,
yep.
What I would be looking for.
Let's talk about what you cut first.
What do you mean? What do I cut?
Well, what cards aren't relevant to the archetype you care about?
The cards that are not relevant to the archetype that I care about are pretty straightforward. So anything that's black, I would assume that's low curve.
Yeah.
Actually, this is still a playable card because it returns. The Artifact Golem is just generic garbage.
Not that great.
Fog, these 3-cost tap creatures. The Paladin would probably be going. The Raider would probably be going. The 2/1 haste would probably be going. So depending on my colors, I think here's what I'd be looking. This would probably be going, and these are probably what I'd be looking for, depending on my colors.
Yeah.
So let me give you some context before you think. So if I was in like a bent with flyers, I think these are some big boy flyers that pay off pretty well.
Yep.
So that's just why I would play these, but there's better cards. Like if I was going to Dominaria, I'd be looking for a Cloud Reader Sphinx over this because it's essentially the same thing with the Scry.
Mm-hmm.
This right here is just a bomb. Dinosaurs that you have control have haste, but dropping this on turn 4, turn 3 is basically 7 power that hits the board with a 3/3 haste, right?
Yeah, that's a great card.
It's a very, very good card.
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of card you want in the archetype that we were talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Depth of Desire. Why would I play it? Pretty simple. If I was in a Simic deck, it's going to offset tempo into your favor for a ramp deck.
And give you a treasure.
Give you a treasure, which is a ramp card.
Yep.
So I'd still play it. It's not necessarily one of my first picks, but if I had like the addendum draw, I might consider playing this over, depending on my bombs.
And this one, because it's naturalized that for a little bit more mana, but it replaces itself.
Exactly. So this is a naturalized that actually pays off with the ramp, right? Because if you get to 4 mana, naturalizing with it and drawing a card is significantly better.
Sure.
Now, March of the Drown, the reason I would consider playing it is because typically in a ramp deck, you're trying to get to those big creatures, and in League, we both know that like you might not necessarily get to cast it more than once. This gives you the opportunity to cast it multiple times.
Sure.
Now there are better ones than this. Soul Salvage There's a return one from Rivals of Ixalan that also draws you a card that I'm currently playing. But just paying 1 mana to return a creature is still significantly good, especially if your game plan is to ramp into a bomb and then have them deal with that bomb, and then if they deal with it and you immediately play it the second time, you know what they say, it's like the first time you play Regisaur Alpha, you know, they kill it. The second time you play it, they die, you know, like...
Yeah, I mean, in worst case scenario, it's Raise Dead,
yeah,
which is a classic card and has its place, you know.
In a deck, and in ramp, it's pretty decent.
So we'll keep this bad boy out. Let's see if I can find a better card.
Yeah.
In Rivals of Ixalan.
Yeah. So you're right. Yeah, for sure. So you can do the rip, and so right now I think you're trying to beat at least the Slice in Twain, the Regisaur Alpha, and probably the Depths of Desire. Would
right,
be
so
like
I'm gonna lay them out.
Yeah.
All right. Let's start with the commons. What do we got? What? Oh, that's nice. That's not embarrassing. Well, that's not horrid. And bam, there you go. Okay, so
Here, take these aside.
this, I think, this may sound funny, but I think this is a ramp payoff as well.
Yes, I would agree.
Because you play this on your creature's early game, bring your creature back, and then boom, on the other side you have your
And I'll go as far as to say is that all these flip lands, because I'm currently playing one in one of my decks, they actually play 2 ramp. You were saying how I fix myself for green. The one that I'm playing gives me they always give you 1 mana of any color.
Yep.
So it's basically fixing, and it ramps because it's an additional land, right?
Correct.
So this can actually play into ramp. Like even if it's on one of your dorks early, just gives you an extra land, right?
So I'm going to go through these. I'm going to eliminate the stuff that isn't for this archetype. Obviously, you're going for an aggro if you play the Merfolk archetype, so we can eliminate that. This is more aggro as well. Not so sure about that. We'll come back to that. Plummet would be, again, a sideboard card in this archetype. Vampires isn't really going for the big boy strategy. Neither is Grasping Scoundrel. Now, again, this is... maybe you main deck this, but it's not why you're going into that archetype. Of what's left, this is mediocre. This is good for the same reason that the card that Lee pointed out, the Pirates.
The March of the Drowned.
March of the Drowned.
I would actually say this is significantly better in the archetype that we're talking about.
Because it replaces itself.
It replaces itself, and it's also a higher up the curve, so
Yep.
it's a payoff for your ramp, right?
Exactly. So this is good. That's good in the archetype. I'd say this, not so much. Now this is where we get into sort of more debatable picks, but I like myself an overgrown Armasaur. Frankly, I think that it's not your ideal ramp payoff, but while you're ramping and you're dropping lands on the battlefield, you're getting an army of Saprolings to do whatever you want to with.
Yeah.
If you have any sort of sack outlet, this guy's going to keep feeding you little bodies.
Yeah.
This is more of like a middle of the road card, right? This is kind of like what stops the opponent from killing you before you get to 6 mana.
Yeah. It's essentially a 2-for-1, right? Like you want to block a 2/2 and kill a 5/5 with it.
Yeah, it's not at all bad in the archetype. What do you think about this one? I saw you look kind of sideways at this one. Do you think this has a place in the Big Boys archetype?
I don't. Honestly, I don't. I think it's the answer to the Big Boys archetype. I think,
right.
Generally speaking, the
It's
Big Boys...
the little nerds bigger to trade off.
Yeah, I think the Lightning Strike, I think it's called... not Lightning Strike, Quick Strike or something. There's a 1 cost, +1/+0, first strike scry at common in Ravnica Allegiance. I think that is more the Big Boys, what they want to do, because you want to ramp up and keep up 1 mana for it. You don't want to be, leaving 2 mana up for a trick.
Exactly.
So
I think we can safely cut this from the archetype. This, I don't know if there's any big pirates you're ramping into, so this probably is also
gone.
excluded from the set. So let's look now. Let's see which one. So of the 4 cards for the archetype that I have here from Rivals of Ixalan, let's go back and see what Lee had dug out from Ixalan proper, and let's see what the superior pack would have been for the archetype we're discussing.
I think there's a clear winner.
This is better than that, I think.
That is true. So let's take that one out for you.
Now let's look at our rares. These are comparable.
I don't think so.
What do you think is the better?
I think this is significantly better for the archetype.
For the archetype.
I think that for the archetype of a ramp and a smash deck,
Yeah.
I think that the biggest problem with this one is that it takes too much. It's still a hoop to jump through, right?
True.
This archetype does not want to jump through many hoops.
Yeah, and this gives you another body immediately,
And
it gives you what, 7 power for 5 mana,
Yeah.
and
Assuming you don't get any other dinosaurs, it's also a payoff for other dinosaurs.
I will grudgingly concede that your rare trumps my rare. Let's go into well, for lack of a better word, our green cards.
Yeah. I think I also win that one.
I'm not so sure. I mean, this is a body that you ramp into. This is still circumstantial, sideboardy kind of stuff.
In the current format, this is a main deckable card. Because this card answers so many enchantments. This answers nothing. That's my argument.
I still think it's debatable in that you want to have the big bodies and you want to have a lot of bodies.
Sure. Let's call that a draw.
Let's call this a draw. Okay, so far we got 1-1 and we got a draw. Over here, I don't know. I think a 2-for-1 is gonna trump that.
I think it depends on the deck.
Yeah, of course. It's gonna depend also on the.
But I will concede it. In pure value, these are both 2-for-1s. This is just a 1-for-1 and a ramp. So I'll give it to you. Now that being said, I do think
it's close.
It's a close pack.
It's closer than I thought it would be.
I think
for sure.
If you were to look at just this, I think my pack was still better for the archetype because the Regisaur Alpha is such a high
such a
ceiling.
big payoff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
However, I do think that you overlooked this card. This card, Plummet, in our format, I have main decked one of these every single league. Almost 90% of the time, this is just removal. Because people play flying in limited.
True.
So, and the idea is, especially specifically speaking of this archetype, in a ramp deck, a 2-cost removal is almost premium because you want your removal to be cheap so that you can be casting a creature and removing on the same turn. If you can play the Regisaur Alpha on turn 5 and Plummet, or play the Regisaur Alpha turn 7 and Plummet, that's 2 cards that you're playing in the same turn. And a lot of some of the more veterans players will say is one of the ways to win is play 2 cards whenever your opponent's playing 1.
I've heard that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do think that if you had included this in the deck, it might have been a closer draw. But I think the overwhelming power for the archetype of these 2 cards, I would probably say the Ixalan was a better payoff. Now that being said,
look at the common level here.
Yeah.
These are the payoffs coming out at common and uncommon. And you got the payoffs coming out at rare and uncommon.
That being said, in League, one of the things that we want to take into consideration is just the sheer amount of playables.
Yeah.
And I think your pack would have got more. So that being said, we hope you enjoyed that. We're going to keep doing this every week, and next week we're going to try another archetype. So,
sure.
Sounds good.
And maybe some different sets.
Maybe some different sets, but always playable sets.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. So that was some spicy opens, Chris.
That was pretty hot. That was hot. That was actually a closer contest than I thought it would be between the OG Ixalan and the rivals of Ixalan, which I usually rate much higher.
Yeah, I think that being said, like anybody who's kind of dedicated into Ravnica Allegiance so far, which is a lot of the players, if you're looking for some spice, maybe in your last 4 to 5 packs, going to a different planes like either of the Ixalans in this archetype is a good idea.
Absolutely.
All right, and that is pretty much our new format.
Yep.
We hope you enjoyed the kind of the change, more strategic.
Yeah, we're going global.
We're going global. So we're pushing the resistance, as we said, for League as a format. We still want to say thank you for everybody who's playing in our current league, really enjoying it, and give a thank you to our producer, Dave Greenass, who really puts in a lot of effort, and who produced the how-to video that you guys will have access to.
And are enjoying.
Yeah.
And are watching repeatedly.
Sounds good. So signing out, that is Magus of the League.
Magus of the League. See you next week.